So, Dennis, what does it mean to be successful in life?
Well, I get that question a lot, and I think it's a great question. But for me, I think being successful is just living life according to your values. And in that way, it's regardless of what you do, regardless of how much you accomplish, because the variance is from zero to billions. Uh, but if we can live life according to our values, then I think we've succeeded.
Hmm.
And we'll be able to make a far greater impact on that. Another way I like to look at success is success really isn't what I do. It's really what others do as a result of what I do. Because no matter how much I do, if it doesn't affect anybody, so what?
Yeah.
All that breeds is arrogance, right? But if I can do something that impacts another life, and they're able to go on then and impact other lives, then that's where a legacy is developed. And the more people you can impact, then I think the greater success you've had.
I think most people want to leave behind a legacy or want to be reminded as some kind of legend. But how can someone find their values? How can someone find this thing that they are burning for, that they are doing everything to get through the finish line?
Well, I think your values have to come in based on, how you look at life. What's your worldview? What's your outlet? What's the lens that you view the world with? And that's developed really by answering 5 questions. We've got to begin with our origin. Where did I come from? You know, who is God, basically? Because God is going to determine all the decisions you make. It's and your God. And listen, everybody's got a different God, but you better make sure you've got a God that's more powerful than you are. And because that's where my devotion is. What determines the decisions in my life and where my devotion is really what my God is, no matter what we say. That's why they say, look at your agenda and look at your checkbook and you'll probably find out who their God is. Because it's where we spend our time, money, and energy. And so once I see that, once I understand that, now some people money's their God, you know, uh, but that's an important decision. And once you have that, next is my identity. Big subject today, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But our identity is vital. And if I'm just some protoplasmic form that developed itself into highly intelligent form, there's no purpose in that. There's no real value in that because I didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But if I'm created by God, then I have an inherent value. And now I have an identity with my creator. And so no matter what the world says, my identity comes from the one who created me. And so once I grasp a hold of that, now I have value. Now I have purpose. I have value and I have purpose. I have value because, number one, he decided to make me. I have purpose because he didn't make me for nothing.
Hmm.
Obviously, when you make something, you have a purpose for it. So there's an inherent value in purpose. Next is meaning. What am I here for? I mean, it's one of the biggest questions people have. Who am I? What am I here for? And so I think that's vital. Is it just to eat, drink, be merry, and die? Not really. Because we find that doesn't really satisfy. And so what I've discovered is our meaning really here is number one is to honor my creator, but then the two, to take all that I have and all that I am and use those things for the benefit of others. And when we get that, then now all of a sudden, see, that leads then to my success, helping others, to have a greater impact because of my influence. See? And then morality, big question. We've got to answer the question: is how right and wrong? Is there objective morality or is it subjective morality? The problem with subjective morality is the fact that it basically leaves the door wide open so that there's no standard.
Mm-hmm.
There's no standard of right and wrong. Who determines right and wrong? And we all know there's an inherent understanding that there's a right and wrong. And now some people want to create it themselves, but there is an overall standard of what is right and wrong. Can I just walk up and shoot somebody? Is anybody going to say, yes, that's the right thing to do? No. Where'd that come from? Where did that sense of right, where did it come from? And so again, it comes back to our original thing of who our God is. And that will determine what is the right and wrong. And so once you have that, once you have that objective truth, now I have a standard to go by. Now I have a compass that enhances my purpose. My big deal for me in my business now is helping people to understand their purpose and how then to maximize their potential. And so once you have a standard to go by, now we can go, now we can move forward, and now we can learn to stay on course. And then ultimately is what is my destiny? Is this life all that there is, or is there something after? There's indications that there's something after. In my belief system, there's something after. There is a heaven, and really, when you have that lens, when you have that worldview, then all of a sudden there's always hope. Then. They say one of the greatest things that we can have, one of the greatest things that helps people get through hard times, difficult times, tragic experiences, people who are in prisoner of war camps or things like that, the things that get people through hard, difficult times is the hope. If they have no hope, then there's no reason to go on, right? But if we have hope, then that moves us forward. And if there's hope after life on earth, then that's something that continues then to motivate us to move forward no matter what. And therefore, circumstances don't have to govern my life. I get to decide. I can then determine, what is to be. I don't live by circumstances. I live according to purpose. And so when we can answer those questions, who is God? What is my identity? What is my meaning? What is morality? And what is my destiny? Answering those 5 questions will establish what our values are. If you want to know what your values are, answer those 5 questions and you'll understand what your values are. Whatever they are today. If somebody says their God is money is their God, then that means that determines their decisions that they make. That means that that's where their devotion is. And so therefore, their value comes in whatever is going to what?
Mm-hmm.
Make the money. And if it doesn't make them money, it's not valuable. You see how the one thing determines the rest.
Yeah.
And so that's how I see it.
Okay, wow. There was a lot in it, but the main question I have to you now is, when everybody has their own God, completely letting religion on the sidelines right now. Only everybody has their God. For some, it's their mother. For some, it's their money. For some, it's really their religion. Is there any right or wrong God as well?
Well, personally, I believe there is one God, and he's the creator of the heavens and the earth. And if he really is God, then it would only make sense that, and he created me, that it would only make sense that he would reveal himself to me. And I think that, over the history of man, he has revealed himself.
Okay.
He's revealed himself through the heavens and the earth. I mean, when you look at the heavens and the earth and the meticulous design and order that we have, it would take so much more faith to believe that just happened, that nobody plus nothing equals everything. You see, science even tells us, from nothing, nothing comes, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
so I think he's revealed himself there. There's order design, because if you just move the earth a little bit further from the sun or a little bit closer to the sun, if the earth was on a little different angle, all those different things we've heard about, just little minute things, if they were off, that we wouldn't be able to exist here on earth. So that just tells me if you've got a design, you got a designer. Okay. And then I think he revealed himself through prophets, through men that he spoke to, and then he revealed himself through writings that he inspired men to write,
Mm-hmm.
and then ultimately he revealed himself through his son Jesus Christ. And what a mind-boggling thing that is. All the religions of the world basically start out with me trying to do something in order to please my God. The Greeks got 1,000 gods, and there's all the different gods that are out there. And all the religions say, okay, what do I have to do in order to reach God?
Yeah, but the
Go
the
ahead.
main thing is that everybody has their own God, and my question is there any bad gods? Can you choose the wrong one for your life?
Well, if you choose a God that's a false God, a God that doesn't provide the answers for life and living, I would say that's a wrong God.
Okay, so
And
money,
the
pretty
God
much.
is aligned with reality.
Yeah. So let's say someone isn't didn't choose a god yet, or has not the root for that, and is at a pretty low point at the moment. Where can this person get hope? What it could be a source of hope that things get better when you have money as a god as well? If you don't have any money
Yeah,
anymore, how can you see the
in
good
there.
times? Yeah.
um, well, it's very interesting. God says, if you seek me and search for me with all of your heart, you will find me. And as I look at the testimonies of people throughout history that have actually done that, God has never failed. I have never heard of a case, where it's failed. If somebody said, no, okay, listen, I've had it. I've tried being my own God, because ultimately that's what people's gods are. People's gods are themselves. It's either the true God, the one and only true God, or I'm God.
Mhm.
And then I'm the one who determines the decisions. If I'm fully devoted to myself, then I'm my own God, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who determines right and wrong. I'm the determine, what I'm devoted to. So, and so that's really it. When we can get to the point and say, okay, you're God, I'm not. And so, and be honest, just say, listen, if you're really there, reveal yourself to me, show me, and then I will follow you. Because if he's truly God, if he truly is the omnipotent, all-knowing, ever-present, God, then that's a God worth following. And so if people want to pick a God, that's why I said earlier, if you're going to pick a God, make sure you pick a God that's worth following.
Mhm.
Pick a God that's worth our reverence and our worship,
That gives you hope
you know?
in those bad
Yeah,
moments.
it gives you hope,
Okay.
So that's it for me.
Okay, so this is your main answer to people being successful. They always chose the right God.
Well, I think so. That's where it begins. And that's why I say that the real success is living life according to my values.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I can live life according to my value comes in taking all that I am and all that I have for the benefit of others. I mean, think of it. Nature teaches us. Nature is a great teacher. It's another way that God has revealed us through nature. Think about this. Rivers don't drink their own water.
Mm-hmm.
The sun doesn't give off heat for itself. Trees don't bear fruit for themselves. Flowers don't give off fragrance for themselves. They take all that they have, all that they possess, and all of their resources in order to produce something for the benefit of others. And therein lies the secret of life. Nothing in nature exists solely for itself. So we should learn from that. Nature teaches it. If you never saw, any religious stuff, that's got to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my premise. That's my premise for the success that I've had, is making sure that I take all of my talents, all my skills, all my gifts and abilities, and maximize the potential of each one of those, develop those, not for my image, not for my benefit, but so that I can contribute to others for their benefit. Because when they benefit, I benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about this. Are you an athlete?
I like to think that I'm an athlete, yeah, but not in the right now.
Okay, so suppose you're a footballer, and I mean, maybe you're not a Cristiano Ronaldo, okay, but you're a football, and you go out and you get you get on the varsity team and your school, you get into the pros, and you win the MVP award. I mean, how do you feel? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I mean, that's a huge honor.
Yeah.
That's big, right? Okay, now you're raising your son. You teach him to play football. You coach your son. He gets on the varsity team. He gets into the pros, and he wins the MVP. Which MVP feels better, yours or your son's?
Wow. Okay, so this is a hard question. At the moment, I would say I would love to be the MVP in something, but thinking about having your own son or your own daughter achieving something that you also help them with and everything, I would say that the MVP of my son would be a lot bigger than my own.
It doesn't, but it makes sense. And that's see, that validates what I'm trying to say, is that when you contribute to somebody else's success, not only does it add to your success, not only does it add to your credibility, not only does it add to your image, right? But it just feels so good.
Yeah.
That I had a part in that.
So not being only for yourself, or not being just alive to provide for yourself, but also provide for others. What a beautiful thing to think about. So now there is this big question in my head to how could you really, really, really find all those values when you've been successful, you've been on the top, you have hit MVP, or your daughter or your son, any of your children has hit the MVP, the best thing you could hope for them, and then you see them suffer, or you suffer yourself. So after a success, you always feel like you're completely immortal, and then there will be hard times again. How could you handle those hard times, those failings, when you've been that high before?
Rix, that is such a valuable and important question you're asking, because it's inevitable. We never stay on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, we're coming down.
Yeah.
Eventually,
unfortunately.
Every year, every Olympics, records are broken, right? So, you're not going to stay there. I mean, very few records are not going to be broken, right? And so it's real important for us, and that's where our value has to come in my contribution to others more than my accomplishments and things that I've possessed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kind of thing. And so, because it's going to happen, for me, and this happened in the business world, I had phenomenal success. I mean, I was on the top of the world. We were rocking and rolling. I mean, I was growing on average, I think it was like 12% per month, every month, 12% on over the previous month, for over 12 months. And then we ran into some major problems, publicity problems. And my income dropped 86% in 3 months. And just to add pain to the process there, I had just closed escrow on my first $1 million home. Okay. I closed escrow on March 1st. On March 8th, the crash hit.
Okay.
And my income dropped 86% in those next 3 months. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, it was radical. So when we face those type of things, what do? See, most of us in our process, if we're starting a startup business or if we're running a major business, unfortunately, what happens with many people is we end up focusing on everything that's changed. Our image has changed, our volume has changed, our sales staff has changed, the press has changed. All these things have changed. And in order to get through that, what we have to do is we need to say, okay, that's what's changed, but what hasn't changed?
Mm-hmm.
See, and because that's what's solid. I've got to focus on what I have control of. I can't focus on the things that are out of my control. The press, out of my control. The volume, out of my control. All those things were out of my control.
Yeah.
But so what hadn't changed? For me, the product hadn't changed. The plan hadn't changed. The need hadn't changed. The results hadn't changed. But most of all, I hadn't changed. My dream hadn't changed. My work habits hadn't changed. My vision hadn't changed. My habits hadn't changed. So I need to take all those things that are solid, all those things that are still true, and I need to take what I do have in order then to recreate what I don't have.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I did. And within the next 12 months, I was up 80% back to where I was.
Okay.
And eventually went on and passed and surpassed that. But so that's just it. Sometimes, that's just the test. Life consists of a test and a trust. It's a test with things that I do know. Okay. So when circumstances happen, if I know the answer, then I deal with that. I have to just do what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then there's the trust, and trust comes into play when I'm dealing with things that I don't know. And so I just trust that what I do know and my values and my principles and my process will continue to work.
Okay.
And I know it will work for the future because I've seen it work for the past. Moritz, that's why I tell people all the time, keep a positive progress list. Okay. In other words, if you have little wins and little successes, keep a list of those so that when those times come, you can go back and you look and say, oh, wait a second, here's a major problem. Well, I've had major problems before. And guess what? I made it through it. I made it through those problems. I'll make it through this problem. I'm going to figure it out.
So it's pretty much the hardest thing you've done is the hardest thing you've done mindset. That there is nothing as hard as that one. And when you endure something harder, you have a new baseline to what the hardest thing is. Wow.
Well, yeah. And so think about this. When have you ever made progress in anything? Think of the greatest accomplishment you had. How did you accomplish that? You overcame problems that prevented that from happening, but you figured it out and you overcame those problems and you conquered it. See, problems are essential to progress.
Mm-hmm.
See, adversity equals advancement. It lets you know what you know and it lets you know what you don't know. Listen, in any business, in any life journey, there's only two problems. And, people say, no, what are you talking about? There's millions of problems. No, there's only two problems. There's a knowing problem and there's a doing problem. I need to know what I don't know. What do I ask my team this all the time. What do you need to know in order to do what you've got to do? So there's a knowing part. Now, once you know it, there's only one problem left.
Doing
what you know. You need to know what to do, and then you simply need to do what you know. So, and guess what? In today's world, listen, 100 years ago, it was a lot harder to get the know part. But in today's world, click, click, and you got the answer. I mean, listen, we're in information overload. There's no information that's not available to us anymore. So I just need to know what I need to know and then do what I know. See, it's not truth known, it's truth done.
When that's correct, why are so many people struggling with the doing part? You already said we all have access to the biggest search engines that have ever been, and we are using them constantly, but never for the things or never for our problems. Why is that? Why are we procrastinating?
Well, I think a lot of it is because we don't fully understand our purpose. See, I think we need to design our life based on purpose, not pleasure. Most people are designing their lives to have pleasure and fulfillment, but we need to design our life around purpose. Now, when you fulfill your purpose, it brings great pleasure. We just got the cart before the horse. We're trying to fulfill our, pleasures, and hopefully we find purpose. But that's not how life works. It begins with purpose. I discover my purpose. Once I understand my purpose, then I just need to become the person necessary to fulfill that purpose. That's my personal growth. And when I fulfill my purpose, there's great pleasure.
Thank you so much for opening my eyes pretty much on that topic. I've been struggling so long with finding something that I really like, finding my purpose. I still don't think I am there. So what is the easiest way to find your purpose besides of finding a God and everything? If you have all of that, of course you have this baseline, you have a purpose because God created you, but letting that on the sideline, is there any way to find your purpose in life?
Yeah, I put together actually an online training program, and I just call it Maximize Your Potential. Maximizing Your Potential. And what that is, it's an online course where I basically go through 6 steps to maximize your potential. And the first section is discovering purpose. And there's a number of different questions and things that you can kind of go through. We want to understand, what's my single greatest strength? What motivates me? What am I excited about? If I could only do one thing, in my entire life, what would that one thing be? What are those things that inspire me? There's certain questions that just get us to think in a pattern to say, oh, that's me. Yes, that's me. That's what I want. That brings me pleasure. See, and that's what I would love to do. And so when we go through a series of questions and these type of things, then we discover that and design that. And then I want to design my life to do those things. See, and everybody is different. Everybody is unique. Everybody is so distinctly unique. In other words, think about it. We all have different fingerprints, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting? 8 billion different fingerprints. We have 8 billion different eye prints. We have 8 billion different voice prints. Here's something I just discovered a couple of years ago. 8 billion different heartbeats. See? So that's how distinctly unique we are. DNA. 8 billion different DNA. We are distinctly and uniquely designed meticulously with certain talents, skills, gifts, and abilities. So I've got all those uniquenesses, and then you add to that I'm unique. Nobody has ever seen the same things, heard the same things, read the same things, and experienced the same things. So that makes me unique also. See, part of understanding my purpose, to discover my purpose, is I have to understand my uniqueness and what sets me apart from the rest of the world.
Mhm.
And the things I've seen, heard, read, and experienced, okay, that sets me apart. So now I take my uniquenesses, in other words, my fingerprint, I feel different. My eye print, I see different. My heart print, I have different passions, right? My voice print, I express different. See, we take all of those things, and that gives me a perspective that nobody else has. That gives people value because your background and experience, there's so much I could learn from you because you've been through things I've never seen, heard, or experienced. And that makes everybody valuable. Jim Rohn, one of my great mentors for many years, he said, each of us need all of us, and all of us need each of us. See, this, and when you understand then your purpose and your uniqueness and everybody else's purpose and their uniqueness, now all of a sudden we have community, and real love. And we can accept each other because you who you are and I'm who I am. And with, if we take what you have and what I have, guess what? I can only do so much on my own. But if I take what I have and then what you have and we collaborate, we can do more.
Mhm.
And then if we find somebody else over here with another talent and skills, gifts, and abilities, and we collaborate, how much bigger, better, more magnificent kind of things can we do? And it's amazing. And this is where we have this community. And so that's where that starts. So, yeah, discovering purpose, it's all involved, but that's exactly what I go through in this online course, and that's what my book was about. Basically I took all the principles, the success principles that I used to develop this enormous team, 300 people in the top 1% income bracket, right? And I said, what was it? What were the principles that made all that work? My mentor taught me. He said, hey, what are all those principles you use? I said, well, a lot of them. He said, make me a list. I said, okay. So I wrote down this list. And he said, I think you have a book there. I flunked English twice. I mean, I didn't do good in school, man. I had a
Yeah.
1.98 average. I didn't do good, right? But he said, you got a book there. You have a message that nobody else can give because of what things I've seen, heard, read, and experienced. So I just wrote them down. And it's been amazing. Now it's an international bestseller. And so, so this is what's exciting is that we've got this. So, we discover our purpose. Then we say, okay, who do I need to become in order to fulfill that purpose? That's personal development. And then I need a mindset. I need to set my mind on living my life according to my purpose. See, my purpose determines the decisions I make. It tells me, what things to avoid and that kind of thing. It helps me to maximize my potential. And then people skills. Once my mindset on developing it, guess what? I'm not in the world by myself. And there's other people that I need to collaborate with. So I need to develop people skills so that I understand their strengths, their weaknesses, and how I can contribute to them, how they can contribute to me. So I need to develop people skills. And when I develop the people skills and develop my purpose, right? Then I move into a leadership position because now I'm collaborating, we're working together. Right? And then the key, once you have that leadership, is just to keep it all in balance, so that I can enjoy life. I mean, if we have a goal of making $1 million and that's the financial aspect of my life, there's 7 areas of life. Okay. You can write this down. There's family, there's financial, there's personal, there's professional, there's physical, there's social, and there's spiritual. Everything in life falls under one of those 7 categories. Now, if I put all my effort on the financial and make the $1 million, but destroy my family in the process, have I succeeded? Yeah, in finance, but ultimately in life, is my life balanced, a balanced success? No. So we need to take all of those things, but we also need to learn to keep them in balance, so that we can maximize the enjoyment from what we accomplish. Right?
Wow.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for opening all of our eyes. Dennis Dowdell, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and sharing all of those insights.
Cool. What an honor. A pleasure to be with you, my friend.